might as well get started, okay? So let's start from the beginning. Biggest takeaway from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's presser. So, this was yesterday. It got pushed up a little bit. People started to make their assumptions as to what it was, why it was pushed up, things like that. Let me get Croc back in here. But what was maybe your biggest nugget, maybe your biggest takeaway from this? And we'll just go around. So I'll start with Akash.
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway probably from their presser is that Kyle Shanahan is tired of being associated with like the Kirk Cousins type of quarterback. I forgot who asked, but someone asked him, hey, is like Kirk Cousins your like prototypical quarterback? Is that like what you look for? And he seemed very annoyed with the question. And I thought that was really interesting. And he hit the line like, hey, if you could draw it up, I want the biggest, fastest, strongest quarterback. Obviously someone that makes all the throws from the pocket. But that's sort of, you're looking for these elite physical traits is kind of what I took away. And that's not to say he thinks he could probably win with like a Kirk Cousins, a Jimmy Garoppolo, like that type of quarterback, someone who doesn't have the elite physical traits, but is a good enough quarterback, a middling quarterback, right? But if you're at 3, you trade up, you trade 3 first-round picks, you're looking for someone that could be sort of a star quarterback. And I think that was my biggest takeaway, is that he was annoyed of this notion that he's always looking for this Kirk Cousins type quarterback.
Absolutely. Vish, what about yours?
Yeah, so I also focused on the same line of that press conference, which is what Akash is talking about, that Kirk Cousins moment. But I had a slightly different takeaway. I looked at it as, for the first time, Kyle Shanahan gave you a real glimpse into how he feels about quarterbacks and what kind of quarterbacks he likes. And I feel like the thing that gets associated is that people think that he thinks Kirk Cousins the greatest quarterback ever. And what he told you is, no, like ideally you want to have Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, guys that win from the pocket first, and then when things break down can run around and make a bunch of ridiculously gifted plays because of their physical gifts. But what he's telling you is that he would rather have Kirk Cousins, a guy who wins from the pocket, than have a guy like Kyler Murray who doesn't consistently win from the pocket but can run around and give you those ad-lib plays, second and third reaction. And so that's where I think it's going to be interesting looking at this draft class, because I do think we're going to get into it, but I think there's a guy who does both. And so hopefully they'll draft him. But there's also a guy who does fit the Kirk Cousins style of mold that can win from the pocket. And so we'll see how it goes from there.
Cool. Love it. Al?
So the one thing that stuck out to me is Kyle said a couple times that he can't have what happened 2 out of the last 3 years. And obviously he's referring to Garoppolo getting hurt. He can't afford to have his quarterback not on the field. Now, Kyle Shanahan is the only coach in 49ers history to have 3 10-plus loss seasons. Why? Is he a bad coach? No. It's because his backup quarterback has played 23 of the last 48 games. It's that simple. His starting quarterback has not been able to stay on the field, and he knows something that a lot of us on this panel have been saying for a while. They need their starting quarterback to stay on the field. I think that's a big driving point in this, along with the performance. There's things that obviously you'd like to upgrade from Garoppolo, but the fact of the matter is that he hasn't stayed on the field, and the 2 of the last 3 seasons have been lost. Absolutely lost seasons. And you can't have that happen anymore. How many years can you have 10 losses? It's been 5 out of the last 6 years for this team. And the Super Bowl definitely, bought them some leeway because that was a great season. But you have to have someone behind center consistently. You got to get that franchise guy, and they were aggressive in doing that. And I think they know who their guy is, and we'll get into that, like we said. But that was the big takeaway for me is he needs that quarterback to be on the field, and Jimmy just hasn't been that guy.
Absolutely. Grant?
Yeah, I mean, clearly they have a guy in mind, but whoever that guy is, my takeaway was that they're not necessarily certain that he's going to be ready week 1 or even year 1. I mean, you look at the guys they're going to be choosing from: Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. None of them threw the ball 1,000 times in college. I mean, they might be guys who are really good year 2 or year 3, but could struggle year 1. Who knows? And I feel like the Niners are just protecting themselves for that possibility by keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. Who knows? Jimmy Garoppolo could beat out Justin Fields, Zach Wilson this year. That could happen. So I think that was my takeaway, that they feel like they kind of need Jimmy Garoppolo at least for a few more months until the kid proves himself.
Absolutely. Rich?
Everybody kind of touched on everything else. What I thought was interesting was that they confirmed that they were actually in on Stafford. And it appears that they've gone to plan C for their quarterback because it sounded like they were in on Watson as well. So whatever, we don't need to get into that situation, but obviously they don't feel that there is anything there they can do about it. So they traded up. The other thing, my biggest takeaway was that we didn't really learn anything else that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch haven't already said for the past, 5 months from middle of the season on till now. So I don't really – I listened to it yesterday. I just kind of rolled my eyes at a bunch of things. This is all stuff we've heard in the past. Shanahan said during the season that he – looks at these quarterbacks in the league and values them differently than he did 4 years ago. So he told you that after the Buffalo game, between weeks 14 and 15 or whatever, or 13 and 14, whenever it was, and they, I did kind of chuckle when Lynch said something about how we want to make this trade up, but we don't want to move on from, we don't want to say goodbye to Jimmy G, were his exact words. And it's like, why even say that at this point? Because you're going to eventually, whether it's draft day or before the draft or sometime before week 1. And I think the writing's on the walls for him. They didn't make a trade up to have a guy sit behind Jimmy Garoppolo for the next 4 seasons. So at some point they're going to be saying goodbye to him, and I just don't understand the need or the desire other than to put it out there that that you still think the guy has trade value in some way, but just to keep saying the same weird things over and over, just dispense with it, move on, do what you're going to do and find a trade partner and let it be. So just rip the Band-Aid off. Outside of that, I didn't think we learned anything new that we hadn't already heard.
Right. Absolutely, Rich. Croc?
Yeah, so a few things. I think the first thing is he confirmed what we all thought, and it was that the 49ers will definitely be drafting a quarterback, which, I mean, of course, you use that type of draft capital, you're moving up for a quarterback. The second thing was that they are 100% willing to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. Now, I think like most of us, it's like, hey, if I can keep him and, at least use him, I don't have to rush a rookie in there right away, especially if he's not ready or whatnot, then – we can keep Jimmy Garoppolo, but for the right price, he can go right now. So I took that away. And then I think a couple more things. One, they went through all the scenarios just as we did. The same conversations that we were all having were like, okay, the 49ers could do this, the 49ers could do that. They were going through those same scenarios. Like, okay, we can get Stafford's off. Okay, let's look into Watson. Like, they went through all the same scenarios as us, and we're really going through them probably at the same time as us. As everything was happening. And then my last takeaway is his ideal quarterback that he described is the ideal quarterback that anybody and everybody would want, right? Big, strong, fast, great from the pocket, big arm. Like, who wouldn't want that? So I didn't take anything really away from that. I think he said what a lot of us think. Okay. I think the only thing I'll take away from that is I think people think that he prefers the Kirk Cousins, the Garoppolo, the guy, and I don't think he prefers that. I think he just prefers somebody that's going to execute an offense, whatever offense he creates. So, I didn't take too much away from that either, other than the fact that everybody thinks they want to pigeonhole this type of quarterback to him, and he's like, no, like I am open to different styles of quarterbacks as long as they still do some of the things that I want them to do.
Absolutely. Javi, take us home.
That's not much left for me to say except, I mean, I did say last time we got together that March 17th, the Niners will make a trade up to 3. I didn't say that just to say it. I said it because I heard it. It was off by 9 days, and the Niners were all in on Stafford. They were all in on Watson. They were looking to make a change. They did so. Everything we heard yesterday was exactly what I expected. They're going to give you half truths here and there. They're going to say, hey, we're open up for business without actually saying we're open for business on Jimmy Garoppolo. The Niners are in a win-win situation here. You can keep Jimmy. He plays well. You're winning games. You keep Jimmy. He doesn't play well. Your rookie comes in. He plays well. You can do a whole bunch of stuff here. You can trade him now. You can trade him later. We all know it's the beginning of the end for the Garoppolo era. Unfortunately for him, the Niners just can't risk having more losing seasons. Al hits it on the head all the time. 3 losing seasons out of 4. No other coach survives that. And Kyle knew it. He said it in his presser. We looked at our first 4 years, and we're looking at the next 4 years. He doesn't want a repeat of the last 4. He wants a better outcome of the next 4. So, it was everything I expected, and I'm just glad they did it. I'm glad that Miami was willing to make the move, and Philadelphia got involved. It looked like a 3-way trade to me once it was all said and done, because the Niners traded to 3, and immediately after that, you saw the Miami to Philadelphia trade. So you kind of figured that was the only way the Niners were going to get to 3, with Miami having a contingency plan to get into the top 10. So everyone else hit it on top of the head, and it's field season right now.
Yeah. And I agree. So my 2 cents on it, really the biggest thing that I took away from it was the quote where he talked about, you want people who are going to be strong in the pocket and have pocket presence and things like that. But you also need somebody when the play breaks down to make moves like Mahomes. And he's like, and who doesn't want that? That right there signified that's why Mac Jones wouldn't be the pick. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But for me, that sounded like a change in philosophy as far as what he wanted. And you guys touched on it. I think Akash said it. It's like you didn't choose Kirk Cousins because he's the best. It's just what you thought. That was your plan. And I love the idea of, making this move now, because if you don't, and I think Kyle said something to the idea of being left at the altar at 12. And that was really telling to me, because it's definitely meaning he wanted a quarterback, but knowing that if you stay at 12, it's going to be much tougher. So understanding that and moving up to 3, I think that was, it's a shift in philosophy, and it shows that, I'm, like Akash says, I'm a big process over results guy. No matter what happens, let's say the quarterback doesn't work, the process is correct this time because you went about it the right way in this offseason. So let's move on to our second.
Real quick. I think it's hella funny that Kyle Shanahan said, "Who wouldn't want a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes?"
Like Mahomes,
dude,
yeah, I know. I know.
Dude, you didn't draft him. Hella funny.
You just had to throw it in there. All right, look.
So
So
you say that with a straight face, anyway.
right.
Hey, he also
so,
wait before he also said, but Kirk Cousins is a hell of a player, and a lot of people would be lucky to have a quarterback like that. So
Stop, Kyle.
He was
Stop
gushing
it.
when he talked
he
about
couldn't
Kirk.
stop.
he